Podcasting from Heroes Media Group with real, relevant, and raw opinions. This is the College Sports Hour with your host, Clint McPherson, and co-host, Greg Dixon.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 16 of the College Sports Hour. I'm your host, Clint, and I'm sitting here today with my partner in crime and co-host, Greg. Another week of college sports is in the books, in which we were treated to several college football bowl games, as well as some interesting college basketball matchups. But before we dive right into everything, what is up, brother?
Well, hey, man, hope you're doing well. Want to wish all of our listeners a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, man. Hope everybody's doing well, enjoying a little bit of time off with some family, and excited about talking about some college sports.
Yeah, man, definitely. I'm definitely glad that we got to meet up to hang out for a little while, got to meet up with some family, getting ready for the holidays, and just kick back a little bit. But, hey, we're back to the grind today to put this episode in for everybody that's following us, man.
Let's do it, man.
So today we'll continue the bowl season conversation, guys, by briefly looking at this week's bowl games and some of our predictions that we got right or maybe missed the boat on. But, hey, it is what it is there. We'll give our thoughts about Urban Meyer becoming Ohio State's assistant AD after he retires as coach, but that's not the only thing. We'll briefly look at the recent offensive coordinator hire at Florida State, which, hey, guys, I think is a big win for them. And then we'll transition to what went down during Week 7 in the college basketball AP Top 25, and then talk about the possibility of Duke having the first NBA draft picks on their team. I mean, it's a very realistic possibility. So, guys, the last part of this episode, we're definitely going to dive right into that. But with that said, let's start off with some college football. So, brother, we had 9 bowl games that were played over the weekend. Over the week, actually. So starting on Tuesday, we ran all the way through Saturday, and we're going to quickly run through the bowl games to include the scores. But as we run through some of these games, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about specific teams like UAB, South Florida, BYU, and Army. What do you say, man?
Let's do it, man. Let's dive in.
Yeah, so on Tuesday, December 18th, my birthday, we had UAB playing in a huge bowl game for this program. And they go on to beat Northern Illinois 37-13 in the Sherry Bundy Boca Raton Bowl. And so, I mean, we both call this UAB win. Right. They're having a great year. They end up finishing 11-3 on the year. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about UAB for several reasons. But and one of the main reasons is because 2 seasons ago, man, they shut down their football program.
Right.
And so they were already Conference USA champions this year, which was a huge step in the right direction. Bill Clark has these boys playing ball. He not only has them playing, man, he has them competing and winning, which is great. So, I mean, when you watched this game or when you checked it out after the game, whatever it was, what did you think of it, man?
Man, I tell you what, it's everybody loves a feel-good story, I feel like, man. Everybody wants to get behind and root behind an underdog. And maybe UAB may come in, as expected to win this game. But if you look at this program a couple of years ago when it was non-existent, or maybe 3 or 4 years ago when they were closing it down, man, nobody thought that UAB would be here at this point in time, playing in a bowl game, much less winning a bowl game. Yeah, maybe it's one of those bowl games that nobody really cares about, but you have got a conference champion who has won their conference, is coming in and playing this thing. And, man, you can't do anything but help to cheer for these guys, man, as they're playing ball well, and they're winning their ball games, and then they come away with a bowl win 2 years from being removed from not having a program. It's a huge deal for this school, man.
Oh, I'm right with you on that one. But the story of this team balled out in this game. UAB's quarterback Tyler Johnston III, he throws for 373 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 3 of them to a wide receiver, Xavier Abusi, and he was on point, man. They had a connection, they had a chemistry going on in this game. Xavier had 7 catches for 227 yards on the night. And Bill Clark, like I said, has this team playing, and they finished 11-3 on the year. So this is just a huge step for this program, and congrats, man.
Hey, man, it gives them a great platform to continue to build off of, to continue to recruit from. And, man, I'm sure we'll be hearing from UAB for years to come. Yeah,
so since this was a push, I didn't put it in a tally for either one of us as far as our predictions. But, hey, we stayed there. It was a push. We both got it right. So, hey, it is what it is. But, man, it was a good game, and congrats to UAB. So, let's transition to Wednesday, December 19th, Ohio University. They just run through San Diego State. And 27-0. I called this win, but they pretty much rolled in the game, and San Diego State just seemed like they were just never in it.
Well, obviously they weren't. At no point in time did it seem like they even got off the bus. It looked like they were just excited to be a part of a bowl game and didn't really care anything about playing, and it showed up on the final scoreboard there. Not a whole lot to say. You would have hoped that San Diego State would put up a little bit more of an effort, but looks like they packed it in a little bit early on this football season.
Yeah, Ohio goes on to win. They're the DXL Fresco Bowl champions, however you want to say that, but they won the bowl game. Good, congratulations, Ohio.
There you go.
Let's move on to Thursday, December 20th. We had Marshall. So this bowl game was basically a home game for South Florida because they were playing at Raymond James Stadium, a place they've played at all year that's home. And Marshall beats them 38-20 in the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. But the real story behind this, brother, is not that Marshall wins.
Right.
But South Florida, after starting 7-0 on the season, looking good, looking like a team that was going to challenge UCF, they just never can get it going, and they dropped the last 6 games of the year.
You know, it seems like the wheels started falling off and nobody knew how to try to pull the car over and do some maintenance on it or anything like that, because once everything started blowing up in their face, nobody could get any kind of control of what was going on there, and it just kept going downhill. It was a snowball effect. It started rolling and nobody could stop it. And that's exactly what happened to this South Florida team, man. So they've got a lot of work to do, a lot of repairs to happen as they go into the offseason and preparing for next year. And you gotta hope that Charlie Strong can get this thing turned around for his sake.
I think Charlie Strong, I read a report, I mean, he's basically wiping shop. He's getting rid of players. He's getting rid of coaches. He's trying to figure out what the problem is. He's a good coach, but starting off 7-0 and then dropping your last 6 is just unacceptable no matter where you're at. I mean, that is something that seems like maybe something from the inside out was playing in effect. But, guys, Charlie Strong, South Florida struggled in that second half of the year. And, again, should they have made a bowl game after this display? Probably not. After the display they showed at our final 6 games, probably not. But they did. Right. And congrats to Marshall for actually winning the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl.
Hey, man, that's a trophy right there you can hang on your wall. You put in the trophy case and you're excited about it just simply because it has the words Bad Boy on it.
Exactly. So let's go to Friday, man. Friday, December 21st. We had Florida International beating Toledo. Remember, I said I'm riding with Toledo because I like the Rockets.
You like the Rockets, and the Rocket sputtered out.
Yeah, exactly. They just self-imploded. They lose 35-32. The makers won the Bahamas Bowl. You called Florida International. Kudos to you. Not much to say in this one. Florida National is your makers wanted Bahamas Bowl champions.
Makers wanted. Okay, sure, whatever.
So we had a second game, and this game was a little more of a game that I really paid attention to, and boy, was I glad I paid attention to this.
Sure.
This was an interesting matchup. We had BYU facing off against Western Michigan in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, which always gets me because I like potatoes, but it's just like this Potato Bowl thing. Some of these bowl names are just out of hand.
Whoa. It's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
My bad,
all right?
My bad.
Famous.
So, you have BYU going up against Western Michigan. BYU rolls in this game 49-18. Really wasn't a game, but the story of this game, man, again, we both call BYU, and I got to give a big shout out to BYU QB Zach Wilson for setting the BYU record for going 18 for 18 in their bowl win. He throws for 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was out there dropping dimes, man. So just let me know from what you saw, what you thought about this performance from this guy. He was totally on fire.
I thought it was Kyler Murray out there, to be completely honest with you, out there playing, not Zach Wilson. I mean, 18 for 18 for 317 yards. He's not exactly dinking and dunking out there. I mean, he's throwing some bombs. He's throwing some dimes out there. People are catching it. And, man, it was a great game for them, man. Props to Zach Wilson, man. Not only just setting a record, but having an outstanding game for himself. Really putting himself on the map out there and showing people what he could do. Yeah, it was against Western Michigan, but you're still playing in a bowl game against a college opponent, man, there. And you're able to, on a national stage, being able to show people what you can do.
He stepped up big time, but you look at his stats, I think when you look at it, you're like, you got to put it all in his hands, but not really, man, because some of those balls, he was dropping dimes. But then you had the receivers just pulling in some of the bombs he was throwing too. And so you got to give them credit for that stat line. And I guarantee Zach Wilson would give him credit for that. But at the end of the day, he was the man putting the ball where it needed to be put, placing it where only his offense could get it. And you got to give a lot to the quarterback for doing that, because that is his job. And going 18 for 18 in a bowl game or in any game of that is pretty good.
Well, we just kind of look at it if you look at it from a baseball perspective, a pitcher throws a perfect game. Well, you probably need a couple of plays out there for your defense to make some spectacular plays to keep that all intact. Same thing here with this guy. I mean, obviously not on the same stage, but if you're going to go 18 for 18, chances are you're not throwing perfect passes every single play. You need your receivers to make a couple of plays there, and his guys certainly did that to keep that little streak there intact for him.
Oh, without a doubt. So with that said, again, big shout out to BYU, Zach Wilson and the BYU Cougars, and not the BYU Tigers, I believe that reporter said, ESPN reporter. She was like, congratulations to the BYU Tigers. And then she's like, boo.
Tigers, Cougars, it's all one cat. It's all good.
Oh, man, that was hilarious, though, because she thought she knew what she was talking about, and she did an epic flop. So sorry, guys. But, hey, this is the BYU Cougars. Stay classy, my friend.
Sports. I threw the Ron Burgundy reference. I love it.
All right, guys, so let's switch to Saturday. So you had the majority of the games were on Saturday, December 22nd. Another game you called, Wake Forest, upsetting Memphis 37-34 in the Jared Birmingham Bowl. You called this game. I give you props for that. But Memphis had a chance to force overtime. Field goal kicker, push it to the right. They miss a field goal attempt as time expired. Wake Forest earns this victory, but like we thought, man, there was going to be some offense. There was 37-34, so they didn't disappoint us, and Wake Forest delivers a good win for the ACC.
Hey, man, Memphis had this game kind of in hand there for a while, too, man. Wake Forest had to fight back from an early deficit to try to climb their way back into this game and was able to do it. And then the field goal kicker, he just felt the pressure. And it kind of built up a little bit too much for him, and he wasn't able to pull it out. But, man, congrats to the Demon Deeks of Wake Forest on getting that win. Yeah,
man, congrats. And you are up on me right now with the bowl predictions 2-1 heading into the Army game, which I get right on the even playing field with you, man. Army. Let's just talk about Army for a little while, because not only did they beat Houston 70-14 in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, but just let me rephrase that beginning and just let me tell you that Army blows out and completely dominates Houston in this game and ties the FBS record for the largest margin of victory in a bowl game. Wow. And to me, man, when I go and watch the highlights and when I was watching it in person, the highlight of this game was for sure Kelvin Hopkins Jr.'s nifty 77-yard touchdown run, man. He was juking and jiving. I didn't know at the beginning of the triple option play who had the ball. Players were going everywhere. He was cutting, slicing, and dicing. He takes it to the house, the 77-yard touchdown run. But, man, he ends up with a bowl record 5 rushing touchdowns on the day, helping the Black Knight reach 11 wins for the first time in program history. The Black Knights do it big to end the year, man.
Well, man, congrats to Army, first of all, for the way that they were able to handle the season, playing an extremely great season, and then obviously dominating in this bowl game. So I want to give them some props and everything like that. But Houston, come on, guys. You averaged, for the most part, I think it was the majority of your games, scoring over 40 points in the majority of your games this season. And then you come out in this game and you lay an egg. Yes, Army was running the triple option, and maybe you didn't really know how to handle that. I get that. But you can still put up points, guys. 14, come on. God, come on.
Yeah, they were not ready at all for that triple option, but I thought the offense would have, at least like you said, they would have came out scoring some points. They had – it's like you have a good offensive coordinator.
Right.
I mean, what is going on? You since he's been on the squad, they actually had one of their best offensive statistical seasons to date. From like you said, they were averaging around 40 points a game. I think for 10 games out of the year, they scored over 40 points. So They had a huge year. But this shows you that Army, they were ready to play. The defense stepped up and shut this team out. I mean, allowing a Houston team that scored basically at will on some of these teams throughout the year, holding them to only 14 points, huge win for this program. Huge step in the right direction, and 11 wins, man. I want to reinforce that is huge for this program.
Houston, we have a problem.
Exactly, man. I love it. I love it. So we had 2 other games to follow off. Troy beats Buffalo 42-32. I called that one. Go ahead in the bowl predictions. And then this was another one that me and you just completely missed the boat on. Louisiana Tech and Hawaii. We were both like, Hawaii's playing the Hawaii Bowl in Hawaii. We're going with the home team. But we both went with them, but Hawaii struggled mightily in this game. Louisiana Tech runs it 31-14. They're the SoFi or Sophie Hawaii Bowl champions, whatever you want to say. I don't even know what the acronym stands for. Even if it's an acronym, I have no idea. But Hawaii, another one of those teams that didn't seem to show up in this game, so it wasn't that competitive at all.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the feeling for the majority of the games that we've had so far in this bowl season is that, you pretty much had one team dominating, maybe outside of that Wake Forest Memphis game, but for the most part, people have been just dominating it and not and some good stuff to watch still, but not the excitement that we were hoping for in this first or second week of the bowl season.
Oh, without a doubt. But man, this third week that's coming up,
it's
this
is
the week everybody's been waiting for.
Oh, absolutely.
Saturday rolls around, people are going to be on the couch. People are going to be ready. They're going to have the popcorn. They're going to have whatever it is, pizza, wings, whatever you celebrate
dinner
with is ready. The semifinals kick off. So we can't wait for that, man. But so this is a huge week. Very, very happy about this. But again, bowl season is in full effect. We were treated to 9 games. Those are 9 games. That's a wrap. But let's transition the conversation now since we're on college football. Let's talk a little bit about Urban Meyer becoming Ohio State's assistant AD after he retires as coach. It's not that I want to talk about that piece as much, but I want to talk about 2 things that I took away from his retirement announcement. One of those is at the time of his retirement announcement, Meyer said, "I believe I will not coach again." But I want to turn that question around to you, my friend, and ask you, do you believe he actually believes that?
I do not believe that he actually believes that. I believe he's taking a break from coaching, and that's probably. And look, let me back that up. I don't know anything about his health condition. Right. Okay, I know that maybe in that Maryland game that they were playing, that you and I both commented about how he just didn't look healthy on the sidelines of that game. So I don't know anything about his health condition. I know it's been reported, and man, I hate to hear anybody being sick or having health conditions or anything like that. So if whatever's happening there, man, I hope that gets better, takes care of itself, he heals. We want to extend that out to him. However, it seems like a very similar speech that was given to when he stepped away from Florida. Took a couple of years off and then found himself back at Ohio State. I don't know that he gets back into a college coaching arena. I think that this is my belief that Ohio State is the job that he always wanted. I do feel that way. Could he make his way into the NFL? Possibly. That's kind of ultimately what I think. I don't believe that this is it for him as far as his coaching career is concerned. I know what's going on. I know what he's thinking. Know what it looks like he's headed after this season's over with. Right. But I do not believe that this is the end of his coaching career.
I'm in the boat with you, man. I don't think it is. I just think it's one of those things you say at the time as a coach. Mm-hmm. You're stepping away. You want to give your full attention and your full commitment to the assistant AD position. And plus the class that he's going to co-teach with somebody else that we'll get into in just a second.
Right.
But it's one of those things, like, I do not believe his statement. I do not believe that's really where his head's at. I think whatever he's going through health-wise, he probably needs to pay attention to that because he stepped away from Florida due to health reasons. And then when he gets the new job 2 years later with Ohio State, it doesn't look like it's health. Again, we don't know. We're not in his personal life.
Sure.
But it's an easy thing for people to sharpshoot. And if he's going through whatever it is, a cyst on the brain, whatever he's going through, I hope it gets better. I don't want to see anybody struggle. I don't want to see anybody health-wise related, anybody that's, of high integrity, some believe.
Right. Yeah,
that,
sure.
Whatever it is, it's like, look, he's a leader of a program and he's been a coach that wins. You don't want to see that happen to anybody. And so whatever, like you said, I hope if whatever he's going through, he makes a speedy recovery, even if he can make a recovery from it. With health and medicine the way it is today, there's a lot of things that can be done. So hopefully he takes his time to focus on that and not really the whole AD, the teaching position thing. It's really, I think, a lot of due stress and a lot of things maybe he was battling internally as well that to make his health deteriorate a lot quicker.
Right.
And I know the pressure has to be insurmountable when you're talking about, when winning.
Absolutely.
We're living in a time where winning is something you have to do, and if not, you're on the way out. And so,
no doubt, the head coach at Ohio State for the college football program there is extremely high stress. So,
exactly.
No,
exactly.
You want to step away.
Exactly. But so I don't believe he believes that fully. And I don't think he's really buying into that. So I can kind of see right through it to a certain degree. And I do see him coaching somewhere else eventually, if not the same program, depending on who they end up bringing in. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't believe he believes it. And I just wanted to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously time will tell there, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of seasons.
So let's switch to my other thing that I wanted to, that really stuck out to me after this retirement announcement was, I think later on in the weekend, I don't know if it was announced at the same time, but I know it was on a Thursday that, it was announced that Urban Meyer would co-teach a class titled Leadership and Character in Ohio State's Fisher College of Business. And I wanted to get your feel for that one, my man.
All right, bud. So, once again, man, I hope the man gets better. I really, really do. However, given what's taken place and transpired over the last year and all the questions that came into, he was suspended for the first couple of games of the season because of the way that he handled the situation. My opinion is that I still don't feel like he took responsibility throughout that situation for his role and his involvement in it. And for me, part of having a strong character is taking responsibility for decisions that you made and they were wrong. If they're right, you're gonna receive the credit. But when they're wrong, you receive the criticism and you're pointed out that they're wrong. You stand up and you say, "Hey, that was me. That was on me. That was my fault, and I'm going to do what I can to repair the situation." I still don't feel like that we ever got that from him. Now, he doesn't owe me anything. He doesn't owe you anything as far as that's concerned, okay? I'm as far removed from that whole situation as I can possibly be. I will say this, though. Having watched all that play out through the media, the way that we watched it, if I had a son, I don't want him learning character traits from Urban Meyer at this time.
I totally agree. I mean, with that said, with what you just said, I mean, Meyer has spent, obviously, the past 7 seasons at Ohio State accumulating a great record. I mean, he's like 82-9 with a national championship. So you got 3 Big Ten championships to throw in there. You got 7 division titles, and one of the most important stats to Ohio State fans is that his record against arch rival Michigan is 7-0. But his retirement announcement ends during just a crazy season that we saw in 2018 that began with the suspension for failure to live up to standards of the university in his handling of the abuse allegations, against his former assistant coach, Zach Smith. So when you look at it, I totally agree with you, man. I just don't know if I could be on board, and I can't even really take this seriously. When I read that or heard it, I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I got it. Let dude be an assistant AD. Let him do whatever, and I got it. He does have leadership and character traits that have gotten him to where he's at, but some of those traits are questionable, or some of the decisions he's made are very questionable. I don't know if I'm really gonna be hyped up about signing up for a class or having my family member or a son or daughter sign up for a class that I know this guy hasn't really lived up to that end of the pie. It's like, dude, I don't know if I want my kids learning anything from you in that regard.
Well, I mean, once again, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And, man, I'm sure that there are things that he can teach. I'm sure there's things there that he can share about his experience. Yeah, I mean, you know how to coach football, man. You know how to win. Look at what you did at Utah. Look at what you did at Florida. Look at what you did at Ohio State, okay? You know how to coach football, man. You know how to win. You certainly know how to run the program there at Ohio State. I get that. But look, sometimes we can take things too personally. I get that, but man, I got 2 daughters.
Exactly.
When all this stuff right here starts coming out, I feel like you've got to do, in your position that you were in, you got to do more than what you did. That's my opinion. And now I don't know that I want you teaching character stuff.
No, exactly. And it's almost like, if you look in regard to, and I know it's not as serious, the allegations, as far as how far it goes down with like rape and stuff with like the Joe Paterno at Penn State. But see, that's something that, when you turn your cheek there, the snowball effect can come into play. Yep. And then you don't know what else can happen later on down the road. And then you want to still be the guy that says, I didn't know about it, or you did know about it. Sorry, I should have said something. Or it comes out like for Joe Paterno and totally blindside everybody that he turned a cheek or whatever it was. And it's just like, man, somebody being in your position, you got to take that position. And I think, you're not only being glorified as a coach, you're on another level. When you're a coach like that, you're winning like that, like a Bobby Bowden, a Joe Paterno, or Urban Meyer, or Nick Saban. You're put on a pedestal. You're almost to extent like one of the football gods. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's how people look at you, and people are just. And then when stuff like this comes out, and just imagine how crushed people are going to be when it comes out that Nick Saban's been cheating his whole career. And do I know that's the case? No, but there are tons of people that are coming out and saying that, and all the Alabama fans. If that ever comes out, or some craziness, some kind of huge thing comes out later on down the road when he's aging and he can't even defend himself anymore, it's going to be sad.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, it's just one of those things that just made me chuckle, because it just things never cease to amaze me with just some of these moves that some of these programs make.
Well, I mean, I think you made an extremely valid point there, talking about that we place these guys in these positions on pedestals, and we almost treat them like they are superhuman.
Right.
And specifically, man, we do it with celebrities, we do it with athletes, and we certainly do it with coaches as well. And that's certainly what's happened to guys like Nick Saban. It's what's happened to Urban Meyer. And so, unfortunately, we forget that these guys are human too, and that they're not always going to make all the right moves. They're not always going to make all the right choices, and that's fine, man. I mean, everybody's entitled to mistakes. I want to see people, and I want to do this for me. I want my children to grow up doing this. When you make a mistake, you own up to it.
Exactly.
And that was probably, you're right. The situation that happened there could have been so much worse. Own up to what you did. Own up to your side of it. You weren't Zach Smith in this situation,
exactly.
All right? You didn't do that. Okay, but I'm gonna butcher the quote, and so you're gonna have to forgive me for this. And I'm sorry. I'm sure one of our followers can correct us on that.
It's all good.
A little bit later on. And it says, but the problem is when good people do nothing.
Right.
And I know that's not the entirety of the quote, and I'm leaving out some good parts there. But when we do nothing, I mean, we're not no longer a part of the solution. And so, man, I want to see good people do the right thing. And I just think that's kind of where we missed it on this one.
It's just like, own up, man. We all make mistakes. We're all human. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But just as that leader, as that figurehead, I get it. They're fearful of their job. They're fearful for like, okay, everything I've built is about to be torn down. Right. But I really think what would go a long way of people owning up to it and just being, look, I screwed up. I made a mistake. Right. And this is what I did. And when you do that, I think you can get to a point to where you've basically accepted it. And now, as long as you accepted it and then implementing measures to try to improve or get that position better, I think that's when you can be like, look, this is what I did. I screwed up, but I also implemented this exactly right after this, after I learned from this, after I made a mistake, because I'm not, I'm human. I'm not perfect. But I implemented these measures to make sure this never happens again, and I'll live by these values until I die. Stuff like that. When you're a man and you can own up to stuff like that, because me being in the military, I have a certain, and being instilled the values, the leadership acronym, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. I try to live by those every day. That's not something I really grew up with in my household. I did grow up with learning how to respect people. I knew, I had a certain belief. I made sure I tried to do everything right and be as right as possible. But I really think when you live by certain, values, and you continue in ethics and you continue to push that, I think you can learn. And just, again, not only is your status elite now, but if you can be that man that owns up to it, and hey, whether it's a fireable moment or not, own up to it, man. Yep. And then you can move on with your career. You can move on with things that you like. Look, I made a mistake, but let's just get better.
And people respect that too. People are willing to respect positions and people who admit to their mistakes. There's a leader that I read a lot of his stuff. His name's Craig Rochelle, and he says that people don't want to follow a leader who's always right. They want to follow a leader who's always real. And I believe that part of that right there, part of being real, part of being transparent, is admitting when you mess up, and that's part of having quality, good character.
And not only that, is a good leader also listens. So like when you screw up, or if you didn't know anything, you listen and you help come up with a solution to the problem. So I really think removing yourself from I'm this person, I'm Nick Saban, I'm Urban Meyer. Not Nick Saban. I'm not trying to throw him in here saying he's done anything bad, but I'm just using him as a figurehead because he's so popular. But it's like, look, you got to just own up to it and just move on. And at the end of the day, again, the way you're looked at says a lot. And I just think a lot of the pressure just started getting to him because it was
Sure.
like, look, whether he's screwing up or whether he's lying or not, it's like, his team going out and doing and giving them a heart attack week in and week out because of how they were playing. They were winning,
Yeah.
but they weren't winning,
It wasn't pretty every week.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty every game. So I understand that portion of it. And it is a high stressful position. I got it.
No doubt.
But at the end of the day, man, all we're looking for is you to step up and own it. And, and that's why I really wanted to talk about that. So with that said, though, let's transition conversation now.
All right, man,
And
go for it.
This
You
is for
excited about
me. This is an exciting. And guys, I've tried to be the guy that doesn't really harp on his team. And if you go listen to a lot of the episodes, I really didn't. There was a couple times I went off on a couple tangents, but I think, Greg, for the most part, instigated that, asking me some questions about what I thought.
It's not like I like poking the bear or something like that.
It's like we try to play with each other from time to time in that regard and saying, hey, man, what did you think about that? I got it. And so, but this is a big time for me because a lot went wrong for Florida State this year. During the season, we thought a lot of people were looking for us to have a decent year offensively. We had a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but we had nothing went according to plan. The lethal simplicity went out the window. He stopped calling plays. Willie Taggart, when I say he passed it over to our other offensive guy that ended up leaving us going to UMass, Will Bell. So it's one of those things, Walt Bell. So it was one of those things that, look, we didn't have the greatest offensive year, and then that transition to basically another snowball effect, as I refer it to, is not really delivering when it came to the early signing period.
Right.
Because we had some guys that we were really banking on, Florida State was. Sam Powell, huge quarter, one of the elite quarterbacks that's coming out of high school that we're looking to really start with, possibly. We got a lot of guys in the pipeline, but, he could have been one of the guys. He could have been somebody that we could have counted on, but obviously Mac Brown from UNC swoops him up, and some other guys, got flipped right at the last minute and took right from us. So it was really one of those things that, and I was getting a lot of feedback from people like, man, the one thing everybody said Willie Taggart was good at, and he can't even do that right now. And so, but man, really, I was so happy when I woke up this morning because the rumors have been going around for a little while.
Sure.
But we got an offensive coordinator today, and which I believe is the best thing that could happen to Florida State after early signing period disaster, and Kendall Briles, Art Briles' son, man, which is huge. So I just wanted to see, what is your feel from this? Because he was the guy that was offensive coordinator for Houston that he had a huge offensive year.
Right. Yeah, certainly. So obviously he's got the name Briles in there. It already gives you a little bit of respect coming into the situation. He's got a track record coming in there as well, where he had some great years at Houston. A good year at Houston. He had some good times at Florida Atlantic. So he's got a time at Baylor as well. So he's got some years of experience in there. So this isn't going to be his first rodeo. I will say this: he is going to come in with some pressure on him.
Without a doubt.
Just like you, there are tons of FSU fans that are excited about this hire, but are believing for him to come in there and begin to turn this offense back around into what the Seminole faithful are used to seeing. So he's got a lot to live up to, I think, even though it may be some of that may be some unfair expectations that will be placed on him just because of how bad things were at Florida State this year. There's going to be expectations for a quick turnaround. But, man, I do believe this is going to be a good hire for you guys over the next several years that are really going to begin to see some great things on the offensive side of the ball happen with him at the helm.
I really think he can make a huge impact. I'm liking the fact that Willie Taggart has actually gave him he's the primary play caller now. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case this past year.
Right.
And so he's given him not only those duties, but he's a quarterback coach, which is huge. And when you look at it, he served time, like you mentioned, as offensive coordinator under his dad at Baylor. Again, some of the people were talking about character issues that went on with that program.
Sure.
He was part of that, but I don't know how much of a role he played in that because his dad's the one that's not coaching anymore. He's the one that went on and continued to coach under some of these teams. And so, during the 2015-2016 season, he was the offensive coordinator for Baylor. He goes on to Florida Atlantic under what's his name over there?
Voice is bad.
Oh man, I can't believe this is escaping me right now. But he goes over to Florida Atlantic under Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
And he immediately has that team playing offensively off the charts. And so he goes to Houston. He does real good in 2018. He takes over, and basically when he took play calling duties over, it was during the Cotton Bowl in 2014. And that was a game when the Baylor Bears, when I say the Bears, guys, it's the Baylor Bears, because this in 2014 was when he got his chance with Baylor under his dad. He goes and passes for 601 yards, or his team goes on to pass for 601 yards in that game, which was an NCAA Bowl record. And they ended up scoring 41 points against a good Michigan State team that year that entered, and averaged only 19.9 points per a game that season. So that's huge.
Right.
And so when you look at it, beginning with that game, though, from his start until now, his offenses have averaged 41.8 points per game over the last 4 years. So me, personally, as an FSU fan, I'm stoked about it. And you kind of seen similar results with Willie Taggart's track record before we laid an egg this year. But I think, though, after what I've seen him implement under coaches, he hasn't been the head coach calling the plays. He's been the offensive coordinator being entrusted in calling the plays. And not only for his dad and Art Briles, and not only for Lane Kiffin at Florida Atlantic, and not only for the coach at Houston, he had some huge years in helping really that offense reach some elite status. And so I'm really looking for when he comes in to make an immediate impact, because we have some playmakers.
Sure.
You just got to get the ball to them.
So let me ask you this question then, as we continue on talking about Mr. Briles being the new OC. Some people are going to say this, that he hasn't really had an opportunity to coach in a division or in a conference where there's been a strong defensive front there to go up against him. A lot of those teams, Florida Atlantic, Houston, Baylor, all of those are playing in conferences where they're not necessarily known for the defensive side of the ball. Most of those things are noticed for offensive firepower, and you got to put up that 40 points a game. And not that if you look at the ACC this year, okay. Yeah, granted, it wasn't the best year for the ACC this year, and especially not in the defensive side of the ball. But what do you think about going into the next couple of years, him going up against some teams that are going to have that strong defense, a Clemson team, for example?
I think the offensive philosophy, though, that he's going to implement, because I really think it was unfair for the previous coach, or the previous offensive coordinator, to be thrown. I mean, he was deemed at having a good offensive mind. But then you have a scheme that he's not too familiar with. But you got a scheme that Briles is kind of familiar with. It might not be exact, but it is in the same realm of, he is a run-happy offensive coordinator with a spread offense.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the scheme is there. He uses the screen passes that similar to what Taggart likes. He as a run, it helps the run game.
Sure.
And stuff like that. So I really think him coming in, it's going to be – I really think there could be fireworks there, but I really hope I'm right in that regard, because
yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, he can be on. Him and Willie Taggart could be on the next ship out of Tallahassee if they start off on the bad. If we do exactly what we did last year and have horrible offensive stats and have a horrible just year altogether, I see both of them being on the first boat out. But at the end of the day, I really think this was a huge hire for Willie Taggart, and I do think that some of this offensive scheme, he's going to be able to get around, the defense. And I'm not trying to tiptoe around your question, but I really think some of the defenses that he probably hasn't seen the best defenses that there's to offer. But again, ACC, other than outside of Clemson, he's not going to really see the best defenses out there. He's probably going to see a step up in competition defensively. But again, we're going to play, an SEC team in Florida every year, so he's going to be able to see a defense in that regard. But I really think if we can get the vertical game going and not this side-to-side stuff, more likely, again, I'm fine with it being used as a deterrent. But when you're not throwing the ball downfield and you're continuing to just do this and that, dink and dunk, and you're not going anywhere, and everybody can just, get in the box and really shut the run game down because they know you're just going to go left or right, that really hurts. So I really think him coming in and changing it up will help us, with some of these defenses that we will see during the year.
Well, look, man, every hire that you make is a little bit of a risk in there. You think you make the hire because you think it's going to work out. It's never a guarantee. It's never 100% or anything like that. However, I am like you. I do like the hire for Florida State, man. I think it's going to pay dividends, and I believe you're going to see a little bit of a resurgence there for Florida State coming into next year.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging in right there for listening to me talk about my Noles. Probably one of the only times that I've been really psyched outside of the beginning of the year, thinking when they beat
Samford coming into the game. You were excited about that, weren't you?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was just so stoked because we beat Samford. Come on, guy. But at the end of the day, look, Florida State, again, like I said, I think this is the best thing Willie Taggart has done since he's been with his short stint at Florida State. And I think if he can continue to make moves like this, we definitely got to figure something else out on the defensive side of the ball, because we're not good there either. Right. But I really think if we can score some points, we'll be able to offset some of those defensive issues, again, similar to like in Oklahoma. Or, again, do I think we're going to get there? Probably not, that fast. But, again, if we can score more points than we did, I think we're going to be a lot more competitive going forward.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, brother, let's switch topics and talk some college basketball. We had some big games, man. College basketball is officially wrapping up Week 7 today. And as we all know, we will be treated to a new AP Top 25 tomorrow. So we have that to look forward to. And I always love when that time comes around, because we get to see Will Duke moving to first. Will Florida State moving to the top 10? Stuff like that.
There you go.
So let's take a look at some of the upsets and some big wins that happened this week in the men's college basketball AP Top 25. But before we do, I want to plug. I was really bummed the rankings that came out that Florida State dropped. They had an off week. They didn't play.
Right.
You had North Carolina knock off, Gonzaga and stuff like that, and you had them jump, and Florida State dropped to 11th after being in the top 10. I was kind of bitter about that, but, man, I think some revenge took place. Not Florida State we didn't have a part in that, but some teams took care of some teams for me. So Florida State possibly will rear its head in the top 10
I would say when the top 25 comes out, you're going to see Florida State in the top 10. Don't you worry too much about
man.
that.
Let's switch over and let's talk about Week 7 recap, man. So Vanderbilt, they defeat Arizona State 81-65. Tell me about that game, brother.
Yeah, man. Once again, man, you got a game right here that is Vanderbilt's going to be that little pesky little team that kind of came in there, snuck up on Arizona State, because I believe Arizona State was looking forward to a game that will come up later on Saturday that we'll talk about in a few moments. Vanderbilt's without their star freshman in this game, Darius Garland, but it doesn't matter. Saban Lee had 14 points and led 5 players for Vanderbilt who scored in double figures to be able to score the upset win. They hit 12 of 28 shots from three, going 6 of 12 in the first half, man. Huge hot shooting that was going on for Vanderbilt, man, going on in this game. And Coach Bobby Hurley for Arizona State, man, he had a couple of comments there after the game, man. His team was a little bit shell-shocked, not really being able to get back defensively, not putting a hand in people's faces. He was a little bit perturbed by his team doing that. Aaron Neesmith had 13 points off the bench. Yanni Wetzel had 12 points for Vanderbilt, man. They held Arizona State to only shoot 32% from the field, man. And, man, we're dominating in this game and got a huge win for Vanderbilt in this beating a ranked Arizona State team.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this Arizona State team, they're a team that, when they were out of the top 25, they were a team that I was like, look out for this team. It's almost like, the football squad. You got to watch out for this team because Arizona State's pretty good this year. As you'll see later on in the week, they didn't win this game. And Vanderbilt was ready. When you hit 12 threes and you limit the other team to 32% from the floor, from the field, I mean, that's huge, especially a good Arizona State team. So this is a good quality win for Vanderbilt, man. I really like what Vanderbilt was able to do in this game. They really limited some of the playmakers for Arizona State, and they deliver a huge win.
Oh, yeah, and their bench was a big deal for them as well, man. Vanderbilt's bench outscored Arizona State's 36-21. And for me, I mean, you can kind of look at it right there as being pretty much the story of the game right there when their bench was able to do what it did.
Without a doubt. And with that said, a huge game. Let's talk about the NC State Wolfpack beating Auburn, number 7 Auburn at that, 78-71. And the thing that sticks out for me is Markel Johnson. Auburn is a good team.
Yep.
NC State, sitting at 10-1 now, is a good team. And when you look at it, the thing that Auburn didn't have was Markel Johnson, and he was the difference maker in this game. What are your thoughts, man?
So, man, I believe that everybody's got to start looking at the NC State Wolfpack, and they got to start recognizing this team as a good team. Last year, they had a new head coach, and Coach Keats, man, he came in there and led NC State to knocking off 3 ranked teams
huge hire.
Last year. Yeah, man, huge hire. He came down there from UNC Wilmington, man, was leading a good program down there, brought him in, man, doing some great things last year. And so now they begin this year, man, knocking off another top 25 team here in number 7 Auburn, who, if you'll remember, it was just about a month ago that, man, had a really close matchup with Duke out there in the Maui Invitational. And so Auburn's a really good team, man, but you're right. The person they were missing was Markel Johnson, had 27 points and hit 5 3-pointers. Both of those were career highs for him. NC State would go on to shoot 58% from the field in the second half. Let me say that again. 58% from the field in the second half, man. It is huge. And NC State didn't just sneak up on Auburn in this game. 78-71 is a close game, don't get me wrong. But they led for nearly 38 minutes in this game.
Jeez.
I mean, State played an extremely good ball game in this one. Man, they helped. And their defense was on point. They helped. They forced Auburn to committing 25 turnovers in this game. And then Auburn would go on to miss 20 of 25 3-pointers. So, man, NC State played some great defense in this game. They had some great offensive output as well. And I think they showed everybody that they're going to be another team to be reckoned with this year. And you're probably going to see them crack the top 25 this week as well.
Oh, without a doubt. I think they made a huge defensive push in this game. I really think, though, when you look at it, 20 of 25 in three-point land.
Right.
Like Auburn, you have to knock down. Even if you knock down 2 of those shots, you would have been right in the game, losing by 1. You knock down 3 of them, you win the game. And you commit 25 turnovers. I'm not trying to take anything away from NC State. But they only lose, if you look at it, Auburn only lose by 7. So when 25 turnovers, you lose by 7, and you miss 20 of 25 three-pointers, you're a good team. Shots were not falling, whether it's defense, again, causing those turnovers, whatever it was. But NC State is a team that I look out for. I went and watched them earlier in the year. I like where they're at. A very, very good team. Again, I think they got a steal on that new coach. He was a good hire. He's proven to be right now. I mean, do I see this team really challenging a Duke or challenging, a Kansas? They could secretly do that. I think they're good enough. They have a good enough talent to do that. But I did see them in person. I do not think they're on the same level as a Duke. I do not think they're on the same level as a Kansas. But they are a very good NC State squad right now. And props to the NC State Wolfpack for beating a good Auburn team.
Absolutely.
Let's move on, brother, to your team, the Duke Blue Devils, defeating number 12 Texas Tech 69-58. It wasn't pretty.
No, it wasn't.
But they did it. Tell me about it.
So, man, I tell you what, before I dive into some of the highlights and the stats of this game, let me just say this right here. And I'm going to sound like every other crazy, whiny Duke fan that was out there, but I watched this game with a couple of Carolina fans, all right? So I'm just going to throw that out there, and they agreed with me on this.
All right.
This was some of the worst officiating that I had seen so far this year, man. I have never seen so many offensive fouls called in this game. Granted, some of them were deserved. I get that. But the fifth, Zion Williamson would score 17 points and get 13 rebounds in this game. He got into foul trouble, committing those several offensive fouls, and ended up fouling out of the game on an offensive charge, okay?
Horrible call.
The offensive charge was garbage. I mean,
Horrible
absolutely garbage. And he fouls out with about 3 minutes to go in the game. Granted, luckily, thankfully, we had Trey Jones in the game, man, and Trey Jones was doing a great work in this game. Let me tell you something. Trey Jones is going to be the glue that keeps this team moving forward. Yes, Zion Williamson is the best player on the court, okay? R.J. Barrett may be the most talented guy on the court, okay?
Right.
But Trey Jones is the guy that's going to keep this engine running. He knows how to run that offense, and he can play some lockdown defense. He's a better defender than his brother Tyus was when he was at Duke. Man, it's been a while since I've seen this guy, seen a guy play this good at defense at this point in time in his career. Duke Coach K compared him to Steve Wojciechowski and Bobby Hurley, both amazing defensive guys at the point position. So, man, they played a good game. R.J. Barrett scored 16 points. Trey Jones had 13 points. This was not a great shooting game for Duke by any stretch, man. They couldn't get in a rhythm behind the three-point line. They didn't knock down their first three-pointer until about 10 minutes to go in the second half. It was crazy. Jack White came up with some big shots there. Duke was able to get the win, but man, this was a pesky, tough Texas Tech team that, man, it was just it had me on the edge of my seat most of the game.
Yeah, without a doubt. Rightfully so. I mean, Texas Tech came to play ball. I agree with you on the officiating. Horrible officiating. But at the end of the day, Zion, he's so big. He's built like a tank. Yeah. He's a brick house. And so so when he just bumps into somebody and they just act like whatever it is, it's going to seem like they got murdered. And at the end of the day, he's going to get the call, or the call's going to go against him more times than not right now, especially when he's moving or driving to the basket, because in transition, he's unstoppable. But when you do a spin move or whatever it was that he ended up doing and knocking the guy over, a horrible call and shouldn't have been called for his fifth foul. But at the end of the day, they called it. He fouls out. But like you said, man, Trey Jones is the guy that is going to be the glue that keeps this team together. And I really think he's the one that needs to be entrusted in crunch time. When you're down, because we see how trigger happy RJ Barrett can get. I think he turns the hero ball when they play some of these big games. He takes a lot of shots. You did bring up the point when we were talking offline about him making some big shots, and I agree. He made some big shots. He did. But he had to take a lot of shots to get to those big shots.
He did. He did have to do that. Yeah.
It's one of those things that I really think, we'll talk about at the end of this episode, about, the possibility of, Zion, Barrett, and Trey Jones or Reddish, going 1, 2, 3 in the NBA draft. But I really think some of that hero ball mentality or the selfishness that you see from him is going to probably limit or prohibit him from going 1, if not possibly falling to number 3. He has to be careful, because if those shots are being knocked down, I have no problem with it.
Sure.
Because you have the killer instinct. I like how aggressive he's being, but I don't like how many shots he's taking to make his shots. It's like, you got to level it out. And like you said, he's probably the most, all-around game right now, probably the best player on Duke, but the best player on the floor athletically, without a doubt, Zion. And,
no doubt.
The ceiling, is there. Yeah. So, but I like Duke. They clawed in this game because, again, Texas Tech kind of, slowed the tempo down. It wasn't a huge transition game for them. You didn't see eye-popping numbers from Zion. Obviously 17 points, 13 rebounds, huge game. But we're used to seeing him and RJ Barrett in the 20s.
Exactly.
So you could tell offensively they struggled, but they grinded a win out, and it says a lot for this team. And I like what they did. They Texas Tech came ready to win, and Duke was like, "No, we got this." And so a lot of people were like, "Oh, Duke, sorry. Look how they played against Texas Tech." Texas Tech's a good squad.
Yeah, this is their first loss on the season.
Yeah, first loss on the season. So give them some credit. Texas Tech's a good team, and they might have, not the top 3 players in the nation on their team, but at the end of the day, they're a good squad. So, that's all I got to say about that.
Well, the other thing about this thing as well is that, you had Zion only getting 17 and RJ only getting 16. You throw that in there. And so Duke only had a total of 69 points, but they hold Texas Tech to 58, which brings me to another big thing here. That's something that Duke's been missing. This Duke team is athletic enough to play really, really good defense.
Oh,
man, they're right up there, man. They might be leading the nation right now in block shots per game, man. It's crazy. I think they've had 3 or 4 games this season so far where they've had a total of 10 blocks or more in their game, man. They are blocking the ball. They're blocking shots at a very high rate, but man, they're getting out on defenders, man. They're long, they're lengthy, and they're getting right up on guys, and they're playing some really, really solid defense I hadn't seen in several years off of a Duke squad.
Yeah, I'm liking what they're doing on both sides of the ball. They're grinding out. They're a team that even with that loss to the Zags, they're still a team that is favorite to win the national championship. The odds, if that happens, who knows? But again, at the end of the day, they're consistent. They're grinding out some of these wins. And they're looking good when they're doing it, and even when they don't look good, they're winning games.
Exactly.
I'm like, when you look at it, they beat a good ranked number 12 team. Texas Tech they're not chumps. It's a good squad. So give Duke credit for that. Like you said, man, Zion's he's so impressive on the defensive end of the ball. All these chase down blocks. It's a work of art, and he's already mastered it at this young of an age. It's going to be ridiculous when he gets to the NBA and just wrecks house.
Well, let me just enjoy this year while he's in a Duke jersey, okay?
So, hey, let's transition. Let's get away from Duke, man. We beat that to death, but I liked it. So, number 20, Marquette. This is a team we talked about. They have 2 losses on the year, but they come up huge and deliver the first loss to number 14 Buffalo, 103-85. They dominate this game. But what really stuck out to me was Marcus Howard. Tell me about that, man, because he had a huge second half.
So Marcus Howard in the first half goes in and knocks down a total of 5 points. He gets 5 points in the first. That's it. That's all he had in the first half. But he would end the game with 45.
What?
Math majors. That means that he scored 40 points in the second half, matching his season high of 45 points, man. So he goes off in this game. Steve Wojciechowski, their head coach over there, he talked about how Marcus Howard, they knew that it was getting ready to turn around. They knew that things would change. They knew that 5 points wasn't indicative of who he is. And man, they wanted him to keep shooting, keep driving, and certainly he did, and had a spectacular game. They clawed their way back into this game and ended up, even though they were trailed by as many as 10 in the first half, they come out, man, and put a number on Buffalo. Sam Hauser adds 18 points. Marquette would add 7 3-pointers during the second half, and, man, they were able to dominate this Buffalo team, which is a good Buffalo team.
Oh, Buffalo is very good.
Yeah.
And I've watched them play several games this year. I've also watched Marquette play, and I've also said when they had a loss earlier in the season, they dropped out of the top 25, and I was like, you got to watch out for this Marquette team. They're good. Marcus Howard is balling, and he showed that he basically had an out-of-body experience in that second half. Like,
right.
You just don't go normally and score 40 points in a half in college basketball.
Yep.
It doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen often enough, but this kid lit up the scoreboard. He was just, anything he threw up seemed like it was going in. He was balling in that second half, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think his team wins. But at the end of the day, Marcus Howard's a beast, and he helped his team deliver a huge win against this Buffalo squad.
You don't see many college players scoring 40 points in any game, period. Certainly not in a half. But, they say that teams take on the personality of their head coach. Steve Wojciechowski's a scrappy guy. He's a scrappy coach, and you can certainly see where his team is taking on that personality in them as well, the way that they play defense, the way that they go out and they play hard. They may not have – they're not going to have the most talented players or anything like that, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find other teams that will work as hard as this Marquette team will on both sides of the ball.
Oh, without a doubt. And I just want to throw in, this kid's balling. If you had R.J. Barrett knocking down half of his shots, he would be on the Marcus Howard line, scoring.
Dude, you are riding R.J. Barrett hard. My gosh.
I just wanted to poke the bear one more time on R.J. Barrett.
Look, you're going to do something. You're going to make me start defending R.J. Barrett. I don't want to do that right now.
All right, man. I just wanted to throw that in there because I'm like, man, this kid's balling. It's like R.J. made, 3-4 shots. He'd be on this level.
What did LSU do?
All right, yeah, man. Let's switch on LSU. So a team that we've been watching all year, Furman, just playing lights out. They go on to lose the first game of the year to LSU.
Yep.
LSU, though, on the other hand, was sitting at 8-3 heading this game. They moved to 9-3, but they've come close to upsetting several other ranked teams this year. With FSU on Florida State. When I say FSU, for some people that might confuse that with Fresno State, but Houston as well. So those are some big games that LSU have lost this year, but they're not against scrub teams. So they defeat a good Furman team. They not only defeated them, they beat them pretty badly, and almost by 20.
Right.
Tell us about that, man.
So, you're right. You mentioned that they almost had that they, let one slip away against Florida State. They let one slip against Houston. Hey, let's remind our listeners out there that, hey, they were up big in both of those teams, man. They were up big by double digits on both of those teams and allowed those games to slip away there in the second half. And so you're playing up against a Furman team that has some big wins. They beat a Villanova team this year. They beat a Loyola of Chicago team. Now, let's not forget that they made it to the Final Four last year. So, this Furman team is really, really good. But then all of a sudden LSU comes into town, man. You got Tremont Waters, who goes for 20 points and 7 assists. Skylar Mays has 16 points as well. You get Cavell Bigby Williams had 10 points and 10 rebounds, man. So they get a chance to come in there, really start putting it on Furman, and ends up continuing to roll this thing in the ground. They didn't let this thing slip away, like we mentioned. They held Furman to only shoot 38% from the field. Man. They out rebounded Furman 40-22, and were able to put this game away, hold on for a big win that's going to kind of give LSU some momentum to continue to move forward as conference play begins in a couple of weeks.
Oh, without a doubt. And that stat that you just read off at the end, I think that's huge. That right there is probably one of the big factors in this game. Not only holding them to 38% from the field, but out-rebounding them. Getting 18 more boards, whether that's defensively or offensively, it doesn't matter. It's like, at the end of the day, that's huge.
Right.
Because whether it's a putback, whether it's just getting and just out-rebounding and just out-hustling, out-working them. LSU, like I was saying when they lost to FSU, they have a good squad, man. I watched them several times this year. They have a team. I got it. They have 3 losses on the year, but I know they're tournament worthy.
Exactly.
And so, again, when conference play in the SEC starts, y'all got to watch out because they're not going to be an easy game at all.
True story. Let's
move on, man. Let's talk about a huge game. I just did not see this one happen. I didn't see it coming.
Right.
Kansas led for most of the game. I kind of tuned out because I was like, Kansas is Dedrick Lawson was balling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't look like Arizona State could stop this guy, until they double team him. But Arizona State defeats Kansas. I'll say that again, guys. This Arizona, a good squad. They defeat number 1 Kansas and deliver their first loss. They beat him 80-76. Tell us about that, brother.
So Arizona State, coming off of the loss to Vanderbilt earlier in the week, is playing a Kansas team that is still playing without one of its best players. Udoko Azubuike is still missing games because of an ankle injury. They had been playing with him. This is the 4th game that he's missed, so they've been able to kind of put a rotation in there that still kept them undefeated until coming into this game. Even though they were the number 1 seed in the country, they get their first loss by Arizona State. Arizona State trailed by as many as 9 points in this game and had a hard time covering Dedrick Lawson. You mentioned him. 30 points and 14 rebounds is what he had. So, so Bobby Hurley gets his team together, man. In the second half, they start making some adjustments. This is what they start doing. They start double-teaming Lawson every time he catches the ball. They start playing some tough defense, and they start making some huge plays, none of which was any bigger than going on a 10-0 run to go up 76-74 with 90 seconds left in the game. You're right when you mentioned that Kansas had led for the majority of this game, but Arizona State never went away, man. They kept going in there. Kansas would turn it over twice in the final 3 possessions of the game. Rob Edward had 15 points and hit 2 crucial free throws with 6 seconds left in the game to pretty much seal it, and then that place went nuts as they stormed the court as Arizona State upset number 1 Kansas.
Yeah, that's a big win for Arizona State, man. That's a quality tick mark heading into that March Madness, and it's early on in the season, so we're still a little ways away from that. But man, that's something you can put in your pocket and take with you, and it's like when it comes down to it, who did what. It's something you can lay on the table and say, we beat Kansas. Because Kansas, even with Udoka out, they're still a good squad. They got
Absolutely.
a great team. And they're, again, if not number 1, one of the top 5 teams in the nation, without a doubt. They have that staying quality that they're going to hover around the 5, if not the top 5 all year, depending on what happens. But again, this is the second year that in a row Arizona State has knocked off Kansas, and that's huge.
Yep.
That's a big win for this team, and it's definitely going to help them move up in the rankings.
Oh, Kansas has found a little bit of a kryptonite there in Arizona State, so we have to see how this thing's continue to progress for Kansas moving forward. Kansas is still going to be a really good team, but I think this does, kind of show that, hey, maybe Arizona State was looking past Vanderbilt a little bit earlier in the week, and as they were prepping for this Kansas team, and they played Kansas hard, they played Kansas tough, and they were able to get a big win.
Yeah, let's talk about this team that probably helped my team move back into the top 10, in the Kentucky Wildcats, who were given a little bit of a hard time.
Yep.
In our last episode, we got to give them a shout out. We called you out, you deliver. You have 2 losses on the year. We talked about those, but number 19 Kentucky, they step up in a huge way and they defeat North Carolina 80-72, and that's North Carolina's 3rd loss on the year. And again, I'm glad they did it because my boys could get a chance to get back into that top 10. But
right.
Tell us what Kentucky did right, man, and how they defeated North Carolina.
So I hate both of these teams, to be completely honest with you, and I'm not really sure which one I hate more.
That's why I love delivering that pitch. Tell us about these teams, my man.
Golly, man, I don't want to say anything good about either one of them. Both of them are really good teams. Neither one of these teams are really going anywhere. We did call out Kentucky last week because we hadn't said a whole lot about them. Yeah. They had gone from being a top 5 team in the country to falling down to number 19 in the rankings, getting their 2nd loss in there. But they do come up with a really big win, beating this North Carolina team. Keldon Johnson has 21 points for Kentucky. He's partnered up there with Reed Travis, who had 20. And, man, these 2 guys really balled and led their team to this victory. P.J. Washington had 11 points and 10 rebounds and 8 assists for Kentucky. I mean, a huge game for them. I tell you what, man, for me, what really kind of tells a story about this game is that both teams here had 18 turnovers in this game. Some of those forced, some of those unforced. But then the out-rebounding. Kentucky out-rebounds UNC 44-33 on them. UNC is known as a team that's going to have some boys down there that are going to battle on the boards and they're going to rebound the ball. When they get out rebounded, they got a problem going on there. They're not playing as great of a defense as Roy would like them to play, and so they still got some things to learn. They still got some things to come together on. But this right here is going to be a big growing opportunity for the UNC Tar Heels. For Kentucky, I mean, this is a momentum shift for them for the rest of their season. Finally getting that big win that they need over a ranked opponent to push them into conference play.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge quality win for them. And North Carolina is not a bad team. North Carolina
Nope.
has a good, they're a very talented squad, even with 3 losses on the year. Kentucky gets that win that we've been, like, hey guys, step up. They step up. But what really stood out to me was the North Carolina not being able to get within closer than 6 points in the second half. They
Right.
kept going up against that wall. It's like they cut the lead down to 6, but couldn't get any closer. And when you can't chip away at that, even if it's getting down to 5, hitting a big 3, now you're down by 2, whatever it is, if you can't break through that, you just don't have it. You don't stand a chance against a good, talented team that can make free throws, that can end up holding you at bay defensively or whatever it is. Even though
Yep.
both of them had 18 turnovers, you want to see them clean that up. But again, you can kind of equal that out. Kentucky's 9 for 26 from 3-pointers. Not terrible, but at the end of the day, they get a huge win, and I love it when North Carolina loses. Sorry, UNC fans. I just when everybody's like, I know how good they are. It's one of those things that my team's in the ACC, so I gotta pull against somebody.
There you go.
Obviously, I get on the North Carolina or Duke ship typically whenever my team's eliminated because I want to see the ACC flourish or whatever, or do good in the tournament. I don't hate any specific team that bad. Like I guess the blood is with like North Carolina. Obviously Tiffany's like, I don't care where they're at, who they play, they need to lose. So
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't matter the situation. I'm like, babe, it's the ACC versus. I don't care. North
Nope.
Carolina's losing. I want them to lose. So
Yep.
I don't have a bitter taste in my mouth to that regard, unless you're like the Florida State Florida rivalry, whatever it is.
See, you
But
get it just in a different arena.
it's
You
just
get
a
it.
different arena, but it's not like I still show the conference I'm rooting for some love. I hate Miami, but if Miami is the only legitimate shot that we have, I got to roll with the Canes.
Well,
I'm not
and you-
gonna tell anybody that, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, Canes, you got to win, because then at the end of the day, I can say, look, ACC represented.
Nope.
But
Can't do it. Can't do it. And see, this is the one game a year that I'm hoping that both teams will lose.
But hey, UNC, you will hear him talk good about your team from time to time, because he has to push these scores out, and he has to give some of these stats lines. So it doesn't matter.
I will when I have to. I mean, this game I don't have to. So
That's true. That's true. But hey, man.
Yep.
So we ran through the scores, we ran through the upsets, we ran through some of the good wins of the week in the top 25. And I know we're only 7 weeks in through the current college basketball season. I know it's early, but I had a question pop up, from somebody that follows us and asked me this specific question. So I wanted to flip it to you and let us talk a little bit about, again, your squad. And I know this is something you'll really thrive in this part of the show in, because you get to talk about your team, you get to talk about your players.
All right.
Because when it comes down to it, I was asked the question: do you think Zion and Reddit go 1-2 in any particular order, whether however you want to put it? Do you think they go 1-2? And if they don't, name several players that can jump above them.
Yep.
And when I look at it, man, I don't see that being a possibility, other than like maybe some crazy like Greg Oden injury or something,
Right.
like to where they have something wrong with a foot, and it's just something that just continues to be wrong with a foot, and it keeps breaking, keeps whatever it is. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that being the case, because these two guys are amazing. But I also want to throw in Cam Reddish, because I think there's a huge possibility that these guys go 1, 2, and 3 in the NBA draft. I specifically think it will be Zion, RJ Barrett, and then Cam, which I really feel comfortable saying that. Again, there's players out in my top 10 that I have listed that could get and fight their way in position. But man, I think as it stands right now, again, week 7, we're early, the talent, the ceiling that these players have, I just think that the possibility of this happening is huge. And if I'm a betting man, I'm probably betting on this. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts and talk about the possibility of Duke having the first 3 NBA draft picks on their team. What do you think, brother?
Absolutely, the possibility is there. I think that if you lay it out currently at this particular moment in time in the college basketball world, Zion and R.J. Barrett are perennial, 1-2s right there. I don't know that there's much conversation surrounding where those two aren't the guys that are 1-2. I believe that most people that you talk to are still going to have Cam Reddish sitting there at the number 3 position as far as draft picks are concerned. You're not hearing a lot out of him. He's kind of a little bit like that forgotten man that's sitting out there. But if you watch him play and on any other team out there, he's leading that team in scoring. That's just kind of the way that he is. But he is a little bit of the forgotten guy. He's got the best stroke of the 3 that's there. He's got the best 3-point shot. He's got the best looking jump shot that's out there. He can also assist. So you don't hear a lot about that, but for the most part he makes good decisions with the basketball. So I think that you are looking at those 3 guys going 1, 2, and 3, and it is a product there of these guys wanting to do something special and wanting to win a national championship together, and with the possibility of going 1, 2, and 3 in the draft. You got some guys out there that are going to make some noise as you continue to move forward. I know you got Nasser Little, who's from UNC, that's there. He's not starting currently for the Tar Heels. He may work himself into the starting lineup, but that guy's got huge upside, and we know that the NBA drafts on upside. We know that they draft on potential and what your ceiling is and stuff like that. Not necessarily how good of a college player you currently are, especially in day and age that we live in with the one and done rule and stuff like that. But we're looking at potential. We're looking at what you could be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So you're gonna get stuff drafted on that. Your favorite player out there in college basketball right now, the Silent Samurai.
I had to throw him in the top 10.
No man, but I mean he's worthy of that. I mean he's gonna be a baller. He has the potential to make some noise there in that top 5. Langford out of Indiana is another guy that's got a chance to make some of that. Hey, the guy Carver from Texas Tech, who Duke just played this week, man.
Exactly.
He scored 25 points in that game against Duke, and I mean, he's balling up down there, down low, battling with those guys as well. So he's got a guy that's making some noise as well. He's another one of those highly touted freshmen that are there as well. So you got some guys that are going to make some noise. I do believe currently it's one of those guys, and assuming that everything stays healthy, assuming that there's not a health concern that shows up in there, I do certainly see Duke going 1 and 2. You're going to see that 3 position maybe just a little bit of question mark, just because Cam Reddish isn't going to get as much hype or as much conversation because of the other 2. But I'm telling you, you got to hang on. You got to hold on, because Trey Jones is going to make a name for himself this year, man. He might look. I'm as fascinated with Zion Williamson as anybody else, but Trey Jones may be my favorite player on this Duke squad right now.
Oh yeah, I mean without a doubt. But I don't like when you're talking about
he's not going in top 3. He's not going in top 3.
Well, yeah, but one and done. I don't know if I like a Trey Jones leaving that early.
His ceiling will get so high this year. I see it kind of going a little bit like Tyus, his brother, did when he was at Duke. He wasn't projected to be that one and done. Trey Jones is not projected to be one and done. But if your ceiling gets but so high, it's kind of like, man, I don't know that I can get any more love than I am getting at this currently, which is what happened to his brother when he got most outstanding player in the tournament that year.
No, I would agree. I think if he continues to be the glue on this team, he's definitely going to get that love, and I think he could definitely make a name and slip up and get him being a one and done. Yeah. I would love to see him continue to play, because I just like watching him play.
I do too, man.
The NBA is just so different than college to me that it's not as exciting to me, because again it's the same approach almost as the NFL and college to me. You can lose so many more games throughout the year and make that 8th spot or whatever it is, and realistically we know it comes down to only 2 or 3 teams in a given year in the NBA. When the parity in college, it's just so competitive that, even Duke, we're all saying Duke, or we're all saying Kansas, or we're all this and that, the Zags, or somebody just can step up and ruin all that because the parity's there. But in the NBA, you don't have, it's like you have a whole bunch of bad teams, and then you have like the Warriors.
Yep.
I was like, the Warriors are going to do it again, or LeBron's going to lead his team to the finals, blah, blah, blah. It's the same story almost every year. Sure. And the good thing about college is just so more exciting. And I like the upside Trey Jones has, and he's been huge. He's delivering. But when you look at my list, man, all of them are averaging 6'7", 6'8". They're all beasts.
Oh, yeah.
But when you look at the eye-popping number of Zion sitting at 285, I mean, just a solid tank. He's built like a tight end. He's probably, if you put him in a tight end position in the NFL right now, he would be throwing bows on people, knocking people over. Something that Carolina Panthers need. It's like,
you know what?
But
I didn't need that. I didn't need you to say that.
But for me, man, when it comes down to it, the unselfishness of him, his
Right.
just the things he can create without without demanding the ball. Like RJ Barrett has to be fed the rock. You got to
Yeah.
feed RJ Barrett the rock. I got it. He's more of a person that he thrives more handling the ball. He has to touch it. He has to be given it. But Zion, the way he can just create without having the ball and having a game plan around that and how big he is and just freakish athleticism that even if he goes to the NBA tomorrow, say he goes number 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, he's going to be the most athletic person that steps on the floor almost nightly.
Yep.
So like on any given night when he's on that floor, because you got to think he's only 18, he's going to continue to mature, he's going to continue to develop, and that 285 is just going to continue to get solid and just, I mean, ridiculous. Look at LeBron. He was a skinny dude, skinny kid going to the NBA, and you
Right.
see how he's built now. It took him a long time, hard work to get as big as he is. And Zion doesn't have to put in that work to be as big as he is. Now, he needs to tone up, obviously, and he needs probably,
Right.
He's going to be in tip-top shape as long as he stays the course. But he's a freak of nature. You don't,
Absolutely.
once in a lifetime, he's somebody you can call the unicorn. And I'm not trying to people are like, okay, he doesn't have a shot. He doesn't need a shot. His shot's
Yeah.
good enough right now that he has years to develop it. The way he's scoring, he doesn't need a shot to score that way. He's
Yep.
jumping over everybody and dunking the ball. You don't need a shot. But his fearlessness to take the ball to the hoop, his windmills, whatever it is, he doesn't care. He's already like, I'm going to the hole. He's determined. He's going to dunk it. Whatever it is, I like his aggressiveness, but I like how he doesn't need to be the main guy to be the main guy, or
Right.
he doesn't need to be the main guy to be. Got it. RJ Barrett, possibly the leader of the team. Zion says that in one of the interviews. He's like, look, as RJ Barrett, he's the leader of the team. I would say he's the leader. Got it. But at the end of the day, man, Zion is who I would take number 1. But I really think the possibility of them going 1, 2, 3 with throwing Reddish in there, as long as he continues to stroke like he is and hitting those, he's more of a passive player, though. That's why he's not getting a lot more love. I would think, he's just somebody that's just, not somebody, again, not as demanding as an RJ Barrett,
Right.
not as flashy as a Zion Williamson, but he's just as good, or if not on the same level playing field as these guys. So you can't bat an eye at him. He's legit. He's for real. So him and then throwing Trey Jones in the top 10 at the end of the year, for as long as he continues to play like he is, I would agree, man. One and done. You could have 4 players from Duke going in the top, in the first round, whatever it is. It's just ridiculous. It's fun to watch and fun to know that even though this is not my team, I get to witness something along this line, because you don't see this every day. So
No. And it's fun to watch. It's going to be fun to continue to watch through the rest of this year and see how it all shakes out.
Oh, without a doubt, brother. But again, thanks for letting us rant on and off, guys. It was fun. This episode definitely went longer than we typically run it. I think we're sitting at like 120 right now.
Oh, my gosh.
It's all good because I enjoyed it. But at the end of the day,
Clint
man,
keeps up with the time. I don't. Clint keeps up with the time.
so blame me. I'll take the punch in the mouth. People probably don't want to hear us babble. If I have to cut some of this stuff out, I will. But at the end of the day, man, thanks for joining on another episode in the books. With Christmas around the corner, everybody, whatever you celebrate, have good holidays, have fun, and thanks for joining on again, brother, in another episode.
Yeah, man, it was great. Everybody have a good week. Be safe. And, man, looking forward to seeing what shakes down with some of these bowl games this weekend.
Oh, without a doubt. Guys, thank you so much for listening to episode 16 of the College Sports Hour. Make sure to check out and subscribe to the College Sports Hour. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Radio Republic, TuneIn Radio, on heroesmediagroup.com, where we originated and where they pulled us in to host our show. Also on collegesportshour.com, on our own platform, our own website. And make sure to like and follow us on Facebook, guys. We continue to grow our numbers. We're up to 440 now. We're not growing as fast as we were, but we'll get there again, guys. It comes down to you helping us get there. And I appreciate everybody that's actually liked our page and actually has tuned in. Give us some great feedback. It's awesome. We'll continue to try to improve the show as we go. There's only certain things we can do with the limited budget that we have, but I really appreciate everybody hanging in there, guys. Also, visit our website at collegesportshour.com, where we continue the college sports conversation and post articles. Appreciate it again, brother. I want to give a special shout out to everybody, to everyone that follows us, everyone that supports us. I want to give a special shout out to our family and friends because they make this possible. They allow us to do what we do. Follow, subscribe. Thanks for continuing to support our show, guys. And don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of the College Sports Hour.